that is not just, it's going to involve everybody, but the two people who have committed to saying stuff so far are myself and Caro. So if you don't know me, my name is Joel Chan, in the I school, coming up in my third year. And this is actually my area of research. I study how creativity works. So it's both personal and professional. Caro, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Caro Williams-Pierce. This is my second year at the iSchool. I have not studied this, so I have just stumbled throughout my entire career so far, trying to figure out how to be an organized, successful designer. Yeah, and I'm planning on learning from Joel today too, just FYI.
All right. So the question for today that we're going to discuss is slightly different from Caro and I met a couple days ago to on how do we set up the discussion. The title, I think, is something like what does a successful process look like in HCI, Special Pandemic Edition. We thought we could scope that a little bit more because success means very different things to different people. Since Caro and I are the first people who committed to speaking, we get to set the terms of the discussion a little bit. So the question really is, for us, is how can we make sustainable, consistent progress in open-ended creative work? So that's what success means to Caro and I. If you're interested in different definitions of success, like, I don't know, winning a Nobel Prize, this may help, but we're not necessarily aiming for that. So just to kind of set the terms, right? So what do we mean by sustainable, consistent progress in open-ended creative work? So first of all, open-ended creative work, right? That includes people who aren't doing research, right? So this is for all of us. If you're doing anything that's not making widgets or just checking boxes and say like copy pasting stuff from one file to the other, where you know very easily what success looks like and you can time it and you can break it down. The opposite of that is things like research, where maybe you have a goal to find the answer to a question, and it may turn out that there isn't an answer, or there isn't an answer now. Similarly, if you're doing user research, do you actually know when you're done? Not necessarily, right? So it's often very open-ended. So if you're doing industry-focused research, user research, you're doing design, you're doing academic research, this is what we mean by open-ended creative work. And visually, that's what we mean, right? So if you've got like a making widgets thing, it's very clear what you need to do. It often looks like a linear process. But for the kinds of things that we're talking about, open-ended creative work, it's often like that. It may feel chaotic. It takes lots of twists and turns. It's hard to plan in a very consistent way. Like, definitely, I can do this in 2 hours, or I have a goal to complete this by next week, and I will have my answer. Reality isn't always so kind. So that's what we mean, that kind of task. So that if you're not doing research, this includes you. If you're doing research, this includes you as well. So you can start thinking about your own work. What kinds of things do you like to do? In some ways, learning is also kind of something like this, although I'm not sure if it's creative. But Caro would say, yes, it is, constructivism. So then what do we mean by sustainable, consistent progress, right? So the opposite of that to me is burnout, right? So you can consistently sprint to deadlines, pull all-nighters, and get things done, but you'll probably burn out. So we're after something like, you may have heard the phrase, this is a marathon, not a sprint, right? You want to, or work-life balance or integration or something like that, well-being, right? Bring your best self. So how do we make consistent creative progress, but not do it in a way that we can only sustain for a short period of time, or only do it if we have tons of money and time. So this implies a degree of robustness to, say, life circumstances like having a young kid, or taking care of an aging parent, or having to work 2 jobs, Is it possible to make consistent creative progress on open-ended work in these different life circumstances, right? So if you think about in the early days, the only people who were scientists were, say, people who had patronage and who had all the time in the world, and they didn't have to do any housework, and they could just sink all their time into sitting in their chair and thinking about the problem. That's one way to do research. But what if you aren't like that? What if you have other responsibilities? What if you have chronic pain and you aren't always able to be fully mentally present, right? Is there a way to continually make consistent, sustainable creative progress in this variety of circumstances? We're after inclusivity of life circumstances here. With one caveat, right? So I've got wisdom from a bunch of people that I trust who are saying, yes, please make sure we say this. Sometimes you just have to do less, right? Sometimes you just can't do creative work, and that's okay, right? So we are living in a pandemic, an uprising, a recession, and more. So if you're finding that you just can't do any creative work and you just need to do widgets. I'm not talking about widgets in a derogatory way, right? So like there's a place for structured work. But if you're thinking about how to do creative work, we're thinking about how to do it in a robust way. Finally, how can we implies process, systems, and tools, not just grit your teeth and do it or be better. Because I think there's a bit of a sometimes there's a misconception when we see successful people that it's just because of who they are, which is kind of true in the sense that they have processes that are part of their identity, but it's not necessarily something you're born with, right? So there's an assumption here that there's some kind of process. And I share this quote a lot. In the design, people talk about the design process, or if you're saying high performance athletics, you'll talk about trusting the process. Or after something like that, where even if you're in the midst of the chaos, you can just do actions and trust that you will make progress, because the feedback loop is so long that it's often not clear if the thing you're doing is successful. But in lots of high performance domains that are a bit more open-ended, there are processes or a process that people develop. Okay. I lost my train of thought. Okay, right. So that's the question, right? How can we make sustainable, consistent progress in open-ended creative work? Caro, what are our assumptions that we're bringing to the table, the two of us at least?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to share some of the assumptions that Joelle and I share, and possibly some that just I have, and Joelle can chime in with any I've missed. But and he's alluded to a few of them. So, for example, with open-ended creative work, there is never a perfect thing. So you can the goal is not to create the best thing ever forever. The goal is to create the best thing for right now, and to give yourself permission to do that. So this is with a widget, if you've created a widget, if you've gotten a page submitted for review someplace or whatever. But the work that we do, we're not going to get that. And for those of you working on dissertations, it's not going to be perfect. It's okay.
The best dissertation is a done dissertation.
Yes.
Is the mantra.
It's so true. I do remember that being really discouraging though when I was working on my dissertation. So yeah. All right. So another assumption is that happiness is important. You have to balance your life. This goes with the assumption that time is finite. There's a certain amount of time. You get to choose things to do. If you stopped, like Joelle said, like if you were a monk somewhere with lots of money and never had to do anything except sit around and think, you could get your dissertation done like super fast. But you're not that person. And I personally think that's a good thing. But let's not get into that anyway. So, okay, so time is finite, and your personal and social health and happiness is as important as your open-ended creative work in moving forward. maybe more important, probably, depending on who you ask. Another assumption is that there are going to be competing goals throughout your life, even if we're just talking about professional life. So you're going to have this like super messy thing happening at the same time that you're going to get little people coming in and being like, hey, you have to fill out this 10-page report that explains how you spent that money we gave you last year. So you're constantly going to have to be like, I could do this version of a widget, which is this 10-page little grant report. And that would feel nice because it'd be nice to just get something done. Or I can keep moving forward in this wobbly thing that I won't get feedback on for a while. So balancing that and those desires is important. And this varies per person. I much prefer being in the middle of the wobbly stuff. I am terrible at doing the administrative stuff that comes in. All right. Another assumption is that things are connected in our lives. And this fits with all of this stuff, like personally and professionally, like the happiness aspect, the type of work that you do will influence your personal happiness. When time is finite, you have to prioritize what you get done. Other people will ask you to prioritize other things, but everything that happens in our lives is going to influence other things around it. And this includes time management, planning, and productivity. And then one assumption that I firmly believe is that collaboration is good. This is a particularly pandemic related thing, is I've found that collaborating gives me this type of social time with people, and I don't get to see many people face to face anymore. So having more collaboration means I get more pseudo face to face time.
Pseudo.
Yeah. All right, what I missed, Joel? Nothing.
Let me see. I agree with everything. Yeah, so I think this is why we need process, right? If time is infinite and you have no competing goals, then you just do the thing. Just put all the hours to it. And who cares if you don't? Well, so I think, yeah, alongside the competing goals is like the reality of there are deadlines. So sometimes you have to finish something by a certain time. For example, maybe you want to take 10 years to finish your dissertation project, but your family would like you to earn more than a grad student salary. So there are real constraints. I think that goes along with competing goals. So that's why I think, yeah, those are things that make it hard.
I'm just going to say that 10 years as a dissertation project is like, that's a hardcore old school grounded theory project right there. It's a great research, but you should finish your dissertation. Don't do the grounded theory, the full grounded theory, get a job, and then you can get a grant for a 10-year project. Come on.
I guess the last thing I would say is an unspoken assumption possibly is that there isn't a single process for everybody, which Caro and I talked about. We share that. So I kind of baked this into some of the questions where we're going to share, hopefully, if this works out, some things that work for us or some things that we see work for other people. And what you should not do is say, aha, if I do this exact thing, my life will be different.
It won't work.
It might be different, but not necessarily
in a bad way.
So one of the, I think, a key assumption is that you have to find what works for you. And you may benefit from seeing examples from other people. So keep that in mind as we talk through things today. If you feel like something I'm sharing just makes no sense, that's okay. It might be that if you try that, it will harm you. Hopefully not, but yeah. So keep that in mind as we're a diverse community with diverse needs and interests, and so what works for one person may not work for another person as well. But hopefully, that's partially why I don't want only Caro and I to share stuff, because we are particular people who share, in this case, one thing, which is we are bad at administrative stuff. But you may be great at that, and that's fine. That's okay. So you may need something different.
I'm going to say, for the record, it's more than okay. It is awesome, and I'm super jealous. That's a superpower that I desperately wish I had. I know Beth Domingo has it, but I wish I had some too.
Right. So there is no silver bullet for everyone, right? Gotta find something that works for you. Okay. That's good. Let's jump in. So these are some questions I prepared to get the discussion going. Please feel free to add your own questions now or during our discussion in the chat, which I will open up right now. Where is it? Where's the chat?
I think everybody has access to it, so.
Yeah, I do. Oh, there you go.
Okay. There you
go. One new message. Would you mind sharing a link to the software? And of course, I would be happy to. I think when you arrive, yeah, here you go. No, that's not it.
Nope.
That's malformed. How about this? There you go.
So this is a great example of how technology will force your process in ways that you may not expect or want. Yep.
Yes. Okay, Caro, why don't we start this off by asking, what are the key areas or aspects of process, just to set the lay of the land?
Whoa. Okay. I have no idea. Okay. I have no idea, but here's why. I am absolutely an experienced person. So I can experience process, but I have a hard time of explicating it. So I can talk about like the double diamond or iteration or etc. and say this is all part of the way that I like this relates in some ways to the way that I experience process. But my actual process is super, super messy. It's way messier than the double diamond or iterative patterns allow for. So I would say like a key aspect of the experience of process for me is, Joel, we talked about this too, is the experience of flow. If I get lost into something, then I know that it's a good thing for me to be doing. And to me, flow is equivalent to productive. If I spend a lot of time working on a process and I never experience flow, then that means that I am not experiencing this productive process.
I like that. So that's an aspect, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Knowing when something you're doing is something you should keep doing.
Yeah.
Because it's not obvious.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no way to look at something and know. And I have totally signed up for research projects or committees or something. And I was like, this is going to be great. And then I get there and I'm like, okay, I have absolutely no motivation.
This is great. Let's start with this, right? Because I think there's a nice key difference from making widgets, right? So if you, so one example of making a widget might be like a class assignment that is like a multiple choice, right? You have to do it. You know, you have to do it. It's assigned to you. You have absolute certainty that this is a thing you should be doing, because if you don't do it, then you don't get the grade. In contrast, in open and creative work, there are many things that you could be doing, and often no external source telling you this is what you should be doing. How do you know whether, if you set on your to-do list from 9 to 10:30, I'm going to do X? Should you always do X? If you promised it to yourself. So that's one granularity. Another might be if you had said, if someone has an opportunity and say, hey, would you like to have coffee and chat about research? Should you do it? Or should you not do it? If your professor emails you and says, come see me in my office from 10:30 to 11, that's a different question, right? Because like they're telling you you have to do this. All right, so this is, I think it's a good place to start. Let's start here. So Caro, you talk about feel.
Yeah,
Talk
and
more about that.
I think choices go in here perfectly, like in your illustration. Like, if you have managed to curate a life in which the majority of things that you do with your open-ended creative tasks are things that you care about, then the choice is fundamentally like, which awesome thing should I work on is very different from, should I go see the professor in their office or should I run away screaming because I'm sure they're going to say that I failed the test. Those are very, very different choices in feeling, and I think in content, widget versus process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have choices between. Now, Catherine asks in the chat, how do you want all of us to participate, now or later? Now. But later is fine too, but
so we just all like mute and start talking, or how
yes.
did you want?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, good question. Yeah. So jump in, unmute and jump in.
Yeah, I mean, in a way to get, I wish we could see more people, and
Yeah.
that would be cool. Nice. It's a little. It's still a little awkward if we haven't done this kind of discussion with a lot of people. So I don't want to interrupt either. I just felt like there was like multiple level of discussion. You know, there might be, like you said, like, do I stop what I'm doing because somebody is want to have coffee? It felt like that's a low level.
Yeah.
But how do you organize the long term? And I'm like, Caro, I haven't, studied this or paid really attention. The only thing we could say is things that we remember seem to have worked. So I was, seconding like for me, there's always when I'm working in groups that it works better, and small groups. I have a hard time with big groups actually, unless, it's being run by somebody who's extremely organized and has a very detailed process. But also as a small groups, like 3 or 4 people, it seems to be best for me. And then, maybe I'm repeating what you said. There was a lot of iteration, meeting often. And the other thing that I thought while you were talking, like groups are good, but, like in our world, I think we should keep it into our HCI related world. We're working with our users, so a lot of the process is kind of what you read in the book, go spend some time with your users or the representative users, learn what they do. And the same thing, there is a lot of variation. Some people have very formal processes for doing this. I remember that's kind of the most fun I had in my career, is spending time just looking at what people are doing and understanding what they are doing and seeing what problems they have and what they use and the crazy things they do. And then you could come back and with your small group of colleagues, start throwing ideas and brainstorming and coming up with something. So really, I mean, it's not just a group. It's, you have to involve the people you are designing for, and there are a lot of ways of doing that. I could stop here, or I could say, maybe I'll say one more thing and then I'll stop. Is that I've been very lucky in general to be creative. You have to be with a group of people you get along with. And, when they start being conflict or being pushed around, I'm not a pioneer in this mode. So I feel like, yeah, I'm going to go somewhere else. I'll work with other people. So being with people you are comfortable disagreeing with, and, like the example with Ben Shannon, but I don't know if he's still there, but we always joke, we always disagree, but we never had fights, or it never got personal. So you have to be able to disagree to massage those ideas and make them move forward. So, and that's not always easy. And I don't have a recipe either, except the same thing. You could tell when it works and you can tell when it doesn't work.
There it is again. You can tell when it works.
Yeah, you have to trust yourself though. And I feel like it took me a while to realize that it was okay to make professional decisions based upon how I felt in context. And so I've had I had a colleague in a previous job who enjoyed yelling at other faculty in committee meetings and faculty meetings. And it's not just that one person. It's the fact that the entire culture, the entire group supported that person in doing that. And it's okay to be like, you know what, that's unprofessional. No one's fixing it. I'm out of here. And that's the same case with 3 or 4 people in a collaborative group of any sort, is like you being like personally comfortable, not professionally comfortable, because disagreement is awesome, like Catherine said, but personally comfortable is just like, it's a beautiful gift to find those people. And also another thing you might not expect is hitting brick walls will happen. And often, like, I have found collaboration to, like, if I'm doing independent, open-ended creative work, I have found that I will hit a brick wall and I need to go talk to other people that I personally trust to get past that brick wall. And sometimes the answer is you can't do that. And that's why it was a brick wall. And sometimes it's just an insight that you're missing. But if you ever feel like you've hit this brick wall and you're just like, I just need to work more, I need to focus more, I need to concentrate more, like, you don't actually necessarily have to throw time at the problem. You have to throw the people that you know and trust, throw their brains at the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes the effect is like, oh, you shouldn't do that, probably. Do you really want to do this? What about this other thing that might be more interesting and you could be more happy working with?
So let's talk a bit more about, so then now there's like these two, another couple instances of this idea of feeling or knowing when it works. What does that look like? How do you know when something's, I guess you feel in your body. That's one kind of more, so I think the reason I'm pushing on this, I think, is it's very, very important and also very implicit. It may not be possible for us to articulate it right here, but I wonder if there's ways that we can talk about it, or things that we've done that help us develop this, or because I think what we're saying is that to make consistent progress on open-ended creative work, you can't rely on someone else to tell you what to do necessarily. And so the sub-problem is, how do I tell if something is working? And then separately, what do I do when it's not working? So we can talk about that. But the first thing is you need to recognize when something is not working. What does that mean? What does that look like?
So
is it so I'm going to put a straw man out there. What if you spent 2 weeks on a problem and you feel like you don't have a publishable answer yet?
So can I share my little scheduling spreadsheet? Because I actually have a thing on there that's kind of DOA. So this might take control. Okay, this might sidetrack us a little bit.
No, there's no sidetracking. We're in here. We're in here.
Excellent. Okay, so this is my scheduling spreadsheet. This is where I track everything that's due by week. This is thanks to Susan Winter, who I believe is here. You can also read my little HCIL Medium post on it. So that's my little pitch. But see, these things are green for this week. That means I did them, whatever they were. You'll find there are some that I've started. There are some that I haven't finished. This is a project that Mega and Crystal Martin, a colleague of ours, started discussing right before the pandemic. And I'm super excited about this project. But when the pandemic hit, I just lost track of it. But Mega and Crystal are kind of waiting for me to do this thing. And every week, like, I know that this is kind of like, it's temporarily dead, let's say. I don't actually want it to be truly dead on arrival, but every week I have to move this forward because I haven't done anything on it. And I've been doing that since the beginning of the pandemic, people. So using this tracking system lets me know whether, like, that act of moving something tells me that process has stalled. Me just like, so at the end of each week, I hide the column if I hide a column and it has that still on it, then that's me telling myself like, it's okay, I'm giving up on that process. So this is a very concrete way for me to figure out whether or not I've hit a roadblock.
Oh, okay. So it helps you understand to track if you are making progress.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes,
right?
yes.
What about when if ever do you decide to just remove it from the spreadsheet?
Yeah. Well, sometimes with the really irritating things, they'll stop being important because I missed a deadline. And that's
they just go away.
Embarrassing to say. Yeah, they just go away. Or, with the pandemic, things change constantly, right? So there are rules that were rules a month ago that are no longer rules. And now suddenly there are new rules, like the whole waiting room Zoom thing that just drives me bonkers in my class. So everything's changing constantly. So it may be that suddenly this thing is no longer necessary. I don't have to plan for it anymore. So I can mark it green and just be like, it's done, and then hide it, or I can delete it. There are times when, in this case, I think the next, it's been so long with the Mega and Crystal work, it's I need to email Mega and Crystal and be like, hi, are you two still interested in me doing this? And apologizing. But there are other things that I really do use this weird feel thing. I am not short on research projects or interesting things to occupy my time. And there's a grant sitting in my inbox that's about statistics education in games at the undergraduate level. And I've been asked to join it as a co-PI. So I'm going to go look at it. And then I'm going to decide, looking at it, I've committed to. And then I'm going to decide, does it feel like something that I'm super excited about? Mm-hmm. And that's when I will decide whether to drop it or continue with it. But honestly, if you've been moving something forward, in the spreadsheet for a month, then it is time to contact your collaborators, apologize, ask for their advice, find a critical friend who can give you good feedback to help get you past that wall, or tell you to just stop trying to run against it and stop trying to break the wall. Or just give yourself permission to stop caring and let it go.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to something Catherine said. So I unhelpfully conflated a bunch of different levels into how you decide if a thing that you're doing is something you should keep doing. And I think I'm grateful that Catherine sort of said, hey, you've got high level planning stuff, and you've got moment to moment. Right now, should I work for 15 more minutes, or should I stop, or should I do this task or not? And so let's tease that apart a little bit. I think that's helpful. Catherine, in a previous discussion, you talked about planning, right? Sort of a higher level. What should we be doing this week, or what should we aim at next? And then setting up timelines and things like that. And then there's potentially a separate question of right now, what should I be doing? And then having that feel for whether something is productive or not, or deciding whether you want to do it or not. So Catherine, could you talk a little bit about what you think is a potentially helpful planning way to do that for the high level planning process?
Same thing. I don't have a recipe, but let's try something. I mean, first, again, we typically work with a little group, so we have to agree on the goals. What do we want to do? If you were gonna, if it's working with a PhD, what do you want to do after you graduate, or when, what's your scale, and how fast you want to move, or things like this. But then you said kind of, deadlines going back, okay, if you're going to graduate in 2 years, that means that you need this by this date. And so you work back a calendar and it may be just this, but you have to set the calendar. And so that might say, and then because in our world, we tend to work with papers in mind. So what's the next deadline? What's the next paper we're gonna write? And are you gonna write? And who is gonna be the first author? Who is in charge of this paper really? And where do we think it's gonna go? And then, okay, that might give you a deadline. And we work really well with, I mean, I think most people work well with deadlines. And it's important to stick to them. You know, sometimes you have to give up, but in general, if you set a deadline, you have to stick to it and, you know, do the thing that you promised to do by next Monday or in 3 months. So that's important. And then once it's a paper process, then there are other types of, you know, typical things that fall into place. Okay, but somebody has to do you have to share the work, you know, who is in charge of this and who is in charge of that. And then there is the low level things, but okay, well, when do we meet every Monday? You know, picking the dates is always so difficult, but it's kind of critical. And it's also another type of deadline that motivates you to, oh my God, we are meeting tomorrow. I haven't done anything yet. So suddenly you rush to have something to discuss, show you that you made progress. So those are little, very simple little trick, but it works if you have regular meeting, opposed to the other technique, which is to say, oh, we'll make an appointment when I have made progress. Bah, I mean, it doesn't work for me. And I don't know anybody who works to push them along to make progress. It's better to make a little bit of progress every time and discuss it and get feedback.
And I want to say, with the pandemic, meetings are actually a lot easier. Okay, so they might be like less socially rewarding for some of us, but we don't have to travel. Our cars aren't going to break down. We might lose the internet, but my internet's been pretty good, so I haven't suffered too much from that. But if I do lose the internet, we're meeting on Zoom, so we just record it anyway and share the links regularly. And that way, if somebody missed something in their notes or they're like, wait, how was I supposed to do that again? They can just go back to the video. So there are ways in which the pandemic's actually like improved my research meetings.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just keep trying to put in little like pandemic things that maybe people haven't necessarily thought about as part of this complicated work process. Yeah.
I'm surprised we haven't heard from more people, you know, like, ooh.
Maybe they're all eating spaghetti. This was me the other day, and I was like, I have to turn the camera off. I can't talk. There's like sauce everywhere.
Yeah. That's okay to turn it off, but it's
We got a question from Caro in the chat. Carol in the chat that I think is related to this idea of deadlines.
Yeah, I'd be happy to add to that too, Joelle.
Yeah. Can you?
Yeah, I see so many students, and I'm so happy to see students. Yay! Because I think for students, there isn't sometimes choice about what to be done. There's just a lot of work and too much work and deadlines, and that can get overwhelming. And I know in my own work life, personal life, sometimes there's the thing you should have done, and it just got huge, and the deadline's coming, and you almost have to be in recovery mode because it's wrapped in so much, oh crap, I'm behind, I should have been. At least for me, and I don't think I'm alone, there's a lot of extra gunk wrapped around the simple task. It has become a huge thing because it's the thing you've been tiptoeing around, didn't do. And I will give a short example. Yesterday, I had, I was behind on a piece of critical correspondence that took a lot of thinking and some diplomacy, and I kept putting it off, and I was just like, dang it, I'm not going to let the month turn to October 1 and not having replied. And I noticed that just as soon as I started writing and saying, look, this is overdue, and I blew it, it got a little looser and it got a little better. But I know that is true for students and deadlines too. Sometimes it just feels so hard because you're in a hole. So can we talk about the hole moments, about something you absolutely have to do?
Yes, Joelle, if you want to answer this, go for it, because I feel like you're doing an awesome job facilitating, and I'm just like, yay, I get to answer the fun questions. But
I would point to Caro what you said, to give yourself permission to. I think I want to say one thing first about just to draw a theme that I'm seeing between Caro and Catherine that I think connects to something I think about as well, which is contrary to close-ended work, making widgets, you don't have to keep checking whether you should, what your goals are and how you can keep going. But notice how Catherine said, like, you have frequent meetings where you check and say, you know, what are the goals? Like, what should we do next? It's not obvious. And so Caro, and you also, Caro, you have your weekly reviews, right? And you're like, should I keep moving this forward? And so I'll drop a link in the chat as well. So this is like kind of like an agile thing, right? That was developed. The agile process was developed for this kind of thing where you don't do away with plans entirely, right? Plans are useless, but planning is indispensable, because having an artifact, like a concrete plan to keep checking, helps you to keep yourself on track. But the point is not to view it as a contract, but to use it as an artifact to help you decide what to do. Now, then the question is, sometimes Ben, Ben has his hand raised. So I'm gonna.
Hey, thank you. Yes, I put my HCIL t-shirt to get in the spirit, and having some chocolate makes it feel like it's really happening here. Yeah, thank you for all these comments. As Catherine said, some of the things that we've used in our group processes that I support very much. I just usually distill them into two simple rules that I use for my students, which is who does what by when, which is what Catherine had described also, that you need clear. In a group, you need to have, everybody needs to know what is really happening, what they have to do by Wednesday at noon, and who's going to respond and give comments by Tuesday at 9 a.m. So very specific commitments really help clarify what's happening and move things forward. She also mentioned the thing that someone is responsible for the next paper and being first author. You set that up in the beginning, not at the end. So responsibility is clear, and then the contributing roles happen after that. The second principle, which really relates to what I think Caro and Joel were saying, is something small soon. It's not helpful to have a block of time where you say, well, I'm going to think during this time. The question is, what are you going to do? What's going to be done when you finish that slot? So while the squiggly lines that Joel showed at the bottom are really nice, within those, there are patterns that are, they will get where, they get somewhere useful. And I like the Uri alone one that goes to a different goal than you started to. That's kind of traditional notion. But, locally, there's something you want to accomplish within the next 90 minutes. And you sort of say,
yeah.
So those two rules seem to be helpful. Who does what by when, and something small soon. I must say, I struggle with this, all my life. It still is an issue. And every day I have to decide what are the projects. I have a long list here of the things that I, want to do. And then you look at them, and keeping focus remains an issue. It doesn't go away. You're not going to get good at it and it's going to be solved. It's going to be something that comes to you as you move forward in life and you succeed and you get to be known and more people want more things from you. You need to develop increasingly sharp boundaries about what it is you do and what it is you don't do. So that's just the wisdom from where I come from, and I hope it's useful to some of you. Thanks for raising these issues.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. I want to riff on something that Ben said. I think it's important, right? So there's one way to plan your time is to say, from 9 to 10, I'm going to think. Another way to do it is to say, from 9 to 10, I'm going to write 1,000 words. Or from 9 to 10, I'm going to try to add something. I'm going to revise this section. Or I'm going to, the difference I think is, in the one case, it's very abstract. There's no concrete artifact. Whenever possible, it's helpful to have that, like Ben says, inside the squiggly lines, there's a pattern of artifacts that you can produce along the way that get you moving forward in progress and enables you to see what you should do next, right? So early in the design process, instead of saying, I'm going to design the thing, you say, I'm going to make a prototype, or I'm going to talk to a user and show it to them and record what they say, or I'm going to run a pilot study, right? So these are concrete artifacts. Let me share something that I'm playing with the lab really fast. So So this is for research, but you can generalize it potentially to other things as well, right? So within the squiggly lines, there's milestones or like cut points and a sequence of artifacts that you can create. So instead of saying, I'm going to do a lit review, you can say, first, I'm going to make an annotated bibliography, for example, and then build on that. That's a concrete thing. Or I'm going to write notes. Instead of saying, I'm going to read this paper, you can say, I'm going to write notes. And that's a concrete artifact that you can produce and build on. Instead of saying, I'm going to design the study, you can say, I'm going to write the method section, right? And it's a concrete artifact. And those can be laid out in a sequence of ways to move forward on things that map to phases of the creative process. So something I found helpful for myself is to do more of a like concrete artifacts thing and less of abstract. I'm going to think about this, or I'm going to. If you're not careful, you can sort of do the NP hard or kind of thing where you say like I'm going to, instead of the sub problem being I'm going to work on this one small thing. I love this idea of something small soon, right? You can, if you're not careful, you can make your goal the end goal. Like I'm going to solve the problem from 9 to 10 days.
Hunger.
Yeah, solve world hunger, right? So yeah, thinking about sequences of artifacts is one way to break things down, and then with the artifact, you can talk to the artifact and figure out if it's worth pursuing or if you want to pivot or how. And also, it's helpful for working with other people, right? Instead of saying, hey, I went and searched for a bunch of stuff and didn't find anything, you can literally show traces of what you found and your notes that you had on it. And that's a more productive way to talk to someone else and do that check of, should we keep going? Should we search more? Well, I need to know what queries you used or what you actually found, what you thought wasn't relevant. So an artifact kind of centric way of working is helpful for this problem of constantly needing to check.
Yeah, I agree. And in a way, I've seen like the more organized students do that naturally, and then they would come to the meeting with, okay, here is what I'm going to do, and then you get a chance to say, oh yeah, you should remember to contact your sponsor or whatever, add some steps or remove some, and then they say, okay, next week I'll have this and this done, and then they go.
Yeah.
And so that's a super organized student, but it's good, and it's a reminder. And so that's something we do more informally in general, but it's good to formalize it like this. I think it's helpful. And then for me, I know it really makes a big difference if I say in front of the group, okay, by next week I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. It works because the peer pressure is there, and and if your group does this, and actually you don't have, even if you didn't do a perfect job, it doesn't matter. We said it at the beginning, but the main thing is you did something, and you never come to the meeting without having done something. I mean, again, there is always exception, as always. Every rule has a exception. Something happened. It's better to be clear. The worst is to not show up at the meeting because you didn't do it. So that would be like the worst thing.
This is another reason to find good collaborators, is because it's not just like I said I should do this, so I should do this. It's like I'm pretty sure the only reason I finished my dissertation is because I was too terrified of disappointing my advisor.
Right. And
she wouldn't have looked at me and gotten angry or whatever, but she would have been disappointed.
Yeah. And then often it's you can't do it. It's better to say it a little bit early, and maybe somebody will say, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of it.
Yep.
And that happens often in good works that work well together. It's better to say it in advance. I can't do this.
Yeah. So I think this is a nice way to connect back to Carol's question, which is a nice way to also say, like, this is especially pressing during a pandemic. You will drop balls, but so how do you? So one frame of the question is, how do I avoid dropping balls? How do I avoid ending up to needing to do an all-nighter because I have to do it by? And part of the answer is planning, right? Mm-hmm. Constant checks and having a way to break things down, to break things down into things you can do something small soon. So I find it helpful. But then the other way to think about it is, what do you do when you have to drop balls? There's just no way around it. And I think the idea of working with other people is actually part of it, right? Being part of a community, not shouldering everything yourself, and constant check-ins with the people that you work with and say, hey, in 2 weeks, I'm just going to be totally swamped. There's just no way I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And people will pick it up, or they'll say like, okay, let's figure out a different way to do this, or let's decide not to go for this deadline. And so like having a community that you trust, that you're psychologically safe in, who know what you're doing and not just putting everything on yourself is part of it. So they can also help you be okay with dropping the ball and say like, yeah, it's okay. I dropped the ball too. So I think that's part of it too. On the first side, like things you can do have control of, again, like this like sequence of artifacts. Notice also, Caro, I didn't show my thing, but I have something basically the same as you in terms of having a bigger picture view. This again goes back to why planning is important, because you actually do want to be completely focused in the moment when you are working on a creative task. But if you only do that, then you'll just like
it's
so
awful.
you need some way to see. So again, Ben also has his list, right? He showed like these are all the list of things I want to do. For myself,
it's interesting how we will have shifted to paper now that we are not going here.
And lots of people have things on their whiteboard. Like have some persistent place where you can go to see the big picture. I use a program that is kind of niche, but and a system. I can drop the link in the chat as well. I mentioned this to Caro, like GTD for academics. I know Daniel uses GTD as well, or used to, but there's a similar kind of set of processes for built-in review. So Caro, you kind of do GTD actually, because you're doing a weekly review.
I fundamentally dislike GTD.
Yeah.
GTD stands for getting things done. Sorry,
getting things done. Yeah. So you're doing part of what makes GTD work for some people is having an inbuilt process to not just do what you need to do in the moment, but to review and decide if you should be doing it.
Right. But I would say the reviewing and deciding is a fundamentally important aspect of memory and learning. And so GTD stole it, but Susan
they stole it
with her Google thing. Yes, David Allen, thanks, Carol.
However you do it, having a way to lay out and be able to see, right? It's a visual, spatial, embodied thing of,
Yeah, and this isn't just being able to see what's like coming down the pike and et cetera. It's also, okay, so one of the things that a lot of academics get asked to do is review journal articles. It's deeply time consuming to do that. And it used to be that like I'd get a request and like I was newer faculty then. So I was just like, oh, cool. The top math ed journal is like, hey, Caro, what's your opinion? I'm like, yay. Okay. Now I'm like, I look at the spreadsheet and I'm like, you know what? I already have one tagged for this month. I do one a month maximum and sometimes less than that because I just can't. But I look at it and I'll be like, no. And that helps me say no, because otherwise it's like, yes, I know it's free labor and it's really time consuming and it's underappreciated in academia and it's, but yeah. So anyway, I want to say one really quick thing. I'm going to share my screen one more time. So the spreadsheet is a way to view this week and, things that are upcoming. But I use Complis in order to actually organize every individual day. So I start by organizing the day and I put in the immovable objects like the meetings, like today. And then I also put in like little tasks that I need to get done. These are, I got a lot of class stuff to do. But the Pomodoro is running. So it is 30 minutes and then a 5-minute break. So if I am working on something that I really don't want to work on, then I'm just like, you know what? One Pomodoro on this annoying task that I can't stand. And as soon as that bell goes off, I am done for the day. And so it's like another way of Joelle's artifact delivery system.
Yeah.
And the
Pomodoro is an artifact.
Right. Exactly. And also you can see like, oh, hey, I don't use it every day, but when I do, it's like, you know what? I have been productive. I might not actually be able to see the work that I do because I'm not building physical objects that sit in front of me, but I can see that I have been putting time in. I have been my definition of productive. through using that.
Yeah.
You're really organized.
Yeah.
It has been a very painful process to get here. And if you
Yeah.
ask my students in my class, they will probably say no. No, she is not. Complice is the joining the room is free. But so there are working rooms you can go join as a guest and you don't have to pay for it. But to have the full setup, it does cost. It doesn't cost much, and it's one dude who built this thing as a labor of love. So it's not like you're throwing more money at Jeff Bezos. So
yeah, we should stop, I think. But I'll say one more thing about Complice that I know it makes it different from other to-do lists, which is it also has an inbuilt process. It calls it intentions, and that's intentional, right? You don't have to carry things over to the next thing, right? It's supposed to be about what do you want to do, what will move you towards your goals. I do something similar as well. I'm not going to share it because I've got some personal stuff in there, but yeah, having like a way to move between the levels of the high level, week level, and the day-to-day nitty-gritty is helpful, even if it's literally on a piece of paper.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I could say one thing I don't know, it might be one good way to close. Like we talk about deadlines, but going in vacation is an excellent deadline. I get so much work done before I go away on vacation. And it's the same for, going for a walk or going in for a one-day vacation. So then, set that as your own goals, but I'm going to finish this and you're going to do it. I mean, if you believe in it, you're going to do it. And as usually at the end, I cram a few more 5 things I had put back in the back burner and that could be done in a few minutes. So that's, plan for good outings and good, good things and use that as a deadline.
Awesome.
Well, thanks,
I just
everyone.
go
ahead.
Sorry.
No,
Sorry,
please.
I was during this talk, we talked a lot about, tools that you have to interact with. And so I just wanted to plug quickly passive tools. And so one thing that really helped me, particularly as a grad student, is a tool called Rescue Time, which is a little logger that you can put on your computer. And when you get to the end of your day and you're like, wow, I'm supposed to be working on my dissertation and I only wrote a paragraph, you can at least go and at the end of your day, go look at this chart that has tracked you. You can also track how many hours you've spent. And if you notice, like, I'm now doing 10 hours of productive work every day, you can be like, whoa, I need to like rein that in and start setting some rules, like stopping at 5 or something like that. So Rescue Time was really helpful when I was struggling with, well, where does the time go? And it's passive, which is nice.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I'm a little worried about like how much time I spend on Twitter though. Like, I don't think I want to know.
Well, the nice thing is you can log each of these interactions and say like, this is a productive action, this is a non-productive action. So there is a little bit of setup, but like Twitter for me is neutral because I interact with a lot of colleagues. So it doesn't like influence my productivity score or whatnot when I'm reviewing at the end of the day, but Facebook is distracting. So so those are that was a tool that was really helpful for me. So, and it has a free and a premium version, but I've been using it for almost a decade and I still use the free version.
Yeah. But we should do that again and get more people to tell us their tricks and tips or things that don't work. You're welcome to share those too. So save others some time.
I have many things that didn't work. Yes, decades of them.
All right.
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming today. We're continuing to grow. Feel free to invite anybody that would like to join us. As you can see, these are a great way to get together. I love the people that did share their face. Thanks, Layla and Matthew.
Yes. No, I have to
Katrine.
say it's better.
I just wanted to give a plug for next week. David Weintrup suggested that we invite assistant professor from the School of Education, Sarah McGrew. And her talk is, who is behind this? Teaching students to evaluate online information. So that'll be a very interesting talk. Additionally, we're inviting colleagues from other universities. So we're going to continue to grow and grow. But again, thank you so much. One more thing, we are recording today. We like to post these on YouTube. So if anybody has any objection, let me know. Otherwise, this will be on there for posterity. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for coming.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye all.
Is there a debrief I should stick around for?
Richie and I
Awesome.
can do a little bit, but
All right. Thank you two so much for organizing this. This was a blast.
yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
And for posting it on Twitter, because that's how I found out. And then I decided to crash.
Perfect. Oh,
Yeah.
we're thrilled. We're
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
I tried to get one of my students from Delaware to attend as well, because I was like, oh, you should come and watch this.
Yeah,
It'll be
yeah,
fun.
yeah.
Yeah, cool.
But-
Thank
But
you.
it's a little last minute.
Yeah.
But it's true. I think next time we should really, really encourage people to show their face. I think it
Yeah.
makes it more lively, and
Yeah.
you know, even remind them in case they haven't used it yet that they are background. So if like I'm only showing my background when when I know we are among friends, but it's you know it's okay. But just showing your face makes a big difference. A wall of names or is not nice.
I
Yeah.
have a lot of fun backgrounds.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when it's a talk, it's one thing, but this is not a talk, it's discussing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's more fun. I haven't seen Matt for ages or Layla. So,
Yeah.
so it's great.
This is Ryan's dog. This is my
No.
Oh,
What a
cool.
cutie.
Yeah.
I have fun. Oh wait, and so I've been having fun playing with her.
Yeah. And actually,
I got
maybe we
one
could do
more
that
thing
too.
to show you. Just wait one
Yeah.
second. 'Cause it's so damn cute. I can't stand it.
Oh, very nice.
Oh my goodness.
That's under video filters. The other day I was playing around and
Oh
there's a
my
whole bunch of- I
goodness.
can be an angel. You can do it too. You can be little animals. One of my favorite.
Yeah,
Nice.
and so the same thing as suggestion, you know, like at the beginning we were all waiting, but it was kind of
Awkward.
gloomy. So
Yeah.
I think it's better to start the conversation and, you know,
Yeah.
just like we do when we're all together sitting. It's going to be
Okay.
noisy, but then at some point
We'll do that. We'll do that.
you could mute everybody at once.
Yeah, the host can always come in and mute everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the gloomy wait was, you know, let's avoid that. It's
Yeah.
not,
And
Yeah.
Joel was waiting for me and I was waiting for him. So
yep.
all right. Thanks
All right.
everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you so
Tired
Nice
much.
seeing you all.
Goodness. Nadja, thank you very much for coming.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So,
Yeah.
so Richie, okay, I'm going to hit stop recording.